Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to Too Far Away Adventures. Tonight we're going to talk about how I came up with the route that I'm going to be taking across the USA on my upcoming trip. Um, Only about 2 weeks away from it, the start tonight on June 1st, and it's coming up rapidly. And as I said, we'll talk about how I came up with the route that I'm going to take across. I guess initially I had planned on riding the Transamerica Trail across the U.S. It's a trail that's been around since 1976. It was initially kind of developed and laid out by a bunch of volunteer cyclists, I guess. I haven't really studied the history of it that well, but and it was to be a part of the bicentennial celebration in 1976. And it runs from Astoria, Oregon to Yorktown, Virginia. And that was initially the route that I planned on taking across the country. Over time, I kind of um, was a little bit back and forth on some start points out there and a finish point in the east. Quite honestly, um, I kind of had a desire to go up into the northern part of Washington State and ride down the coast of Washington for a ways. And initially, my plan was to ride down to Astoria, pick up the Lewis and Clark Trail there, and ride it across the Columbia River Gorge, and then join the Transamerica Trail in Idaho and ride it across to Yorktown from there, or possibly into the Carolinas someplace. So I've had a couple of different thoughts about where I wanted to start and where I wanted to finish. More recently, I have two daughters that now live down in the Orlando, Florida area, and I really want my family to be a part of this. This is a big thing in really in all of our lives. They've all been involved a little bit in kind of helping me to get ready to go on this trip and encouraging me in it. Actually, Andrea is my youngest daughter is doing the video editing, as I think I've probably said a dozen times now. I'm so pleased that she's volunteered to do that. I just mentioned to her I was looking for somebody to do it, and she stepped up and said, "Yeah, Dad, I'll do that." And she's done a great job so far. The video that she's put up, it's a learning curve for both of us, and I've got to learn to do a better job of with the video. And she's been doing a great job with the editing. I'm not giving her the best stuff to work with, and she's really doing a good job with it. But anyway, back to the route. I really wanted to do something that involved the family, and so and I really thought it would be great to finish, which is really going to be, I think, a kind of it's going to be a really exciting day for me when I get to the to the end, and I wanted to have family around for that, and so the two girls and their families will be there when I finish sometime around Labor Day, and so that kind of settled the finishing point in New Smyrna Beach. The start point, as I said, I was kind of back and forth on, and I finally came to the decision that I wanted to start up in Cape Flattery, Washington. Since I'm going all the way down into Florida now, I thought let's just kind of do a diagonal of the country. And Cape Flattery is the furthest most northwest point in the United States, or the continental United States anyway. And so that just seemed like a logical place to start. And it looks really, the pictures I've seen of it, it looks really beautiful up there. I've never been up in that part of the country, and just starting from some place that I haven't been before was pretty interesting or exciting for me. So that's kind of how I came up with a start and a finish. Now I just had to put a route together in between, and so we'll jump over there and take a look at that. Um, and this is the route that I've laid out. This is on on the Ride with GPS map, or Ride with GPS app. This is the laptop version of that, and in this, of course, we're up here at the start, our little green dot up here in Cape Flattery at the northwestern corner of Washington State there. This is our starting point up here, and then the finish point down here at New Smyrna Beach, Florida. And New Smyrna Beach is just it's like kind of between Daytona Beach, and a little bit further to the south is Cape Canaveral, Titusville, that area. So it's just south of Daytona Beach, Florida. So that's the start and the finish. So how did I come up with the route? So I really wanted to use the adventure cycling routes. The Transamerica route is an adventure cycling route. And the reasons that I want to use those is because, first of all, the routes have been thoroughly are used quite a bit. Adventure cycling is very big in the bike touring, bike travel, bike packing industry out there, or hobby, or whatever you want to call it. And so the routes that they have mapped out have been well researched. So they produce some very good paper maps, and I've got one here. I can give you a look at them. This is the map for get this straight around here, the Trans-America Trail, one for the Lewis and Clark, and these things are just full of, try to give you a little picture here, an idea what they look like. They're actually divided up into panels. Many of you that already bike travel have probably used these. So like little, like 30-mile sections of, it's kind of hard to see there on the camera, but like 30-mile sections of these routes are laid out in different panels. You can see there's a panel there, so you get about a 30-mile section each. And they've got a lot of detail in them, a lot of information. And the really great thing is they've got all of the services and all of the points of interest and things are marked out on them. Adventure Cycling also now has been producing these maps in digital form. And this past January, they actually launched a partnership with Ride with GPS, which just happens to be the the navigation system or mapping service that I use to plan my trips and to plan my day-to-day travels. And I'll talk more about them later on, but they have a partnership now in these maps, and Ride with GPS hosts their maps on their platform now, and you can use them in producing your own maps in Ride with GPS, which allows you some editing that you can do in there and changing the route around a little bit or working it out. But you still get all of the things like the points of interest, all the services that are available along those routes, and they're well marked out, very well detailed. And so that's reason number one why I really like them. They also have information like road conditions, road closures. They're updated pretty frequently. They also have really good field notes, particularly in the paper maps, that talk about the different things that you can see along the route that they've mapped out for you. And so I find all of those things quite interesting. They've got everything from weather conditions to average temperatures to just a plethora of information in them. So they're very useful. So part of my decision making was that I really wanted to use adventure cycling routes as much as I could on this trip. And so that's what I've done. And so we'll go back to the route here, and I'll kind of run through it as we go down it. Um, a couple of other things just in mentioning adventure cycling here. Um, the other advantages of riding these routes is that you will run into other riders along the way, because these routes are very popular. The chances are you're going to run into other people that are out there either traveling across the country or taking short trips someplace. And I like that. I like to be able, I love running into other cyclists out there, and being able to trade information back and forth with them about the route ahead, or ride together with them, or whatever. So I like that. There's also the fact that there's some added safety in traveling on their routes. These routes are generally designed to keep you off the main highways as much as possible, and that's not completely possible, particularly in the West. In fact, some of them actually run on interstates a little bit. Um, but the routes keep you in a little bit better places with a little bit better shoulders and better conditions for cyclists to be on. The other thing is that people get used to seeing cyclists on these routes because they're well traveled by people that are bike touring. And while there's not a lot of us out there, there's probably enough that people are aware that there are bikes around out there, and so they're a little bit more cognizant of that fact. So, and I just wanted to kind of run down the route here from top to bottom here real quick, and kind of tell you about the things that I plan on seeing and doing, and what routes I'll be on here. So I start out up here in Cape Flattery, and this I've got to do about a 20-mile ride back to the east here to pick up this Washington Parks route of adventure cycling. And it does a loop around the Olympic Peninsula up here. And I'll be taking a section of it that runs from basically, I think it's a town named CQ down to Aberdeen, Washington. And then it turns and goes to the east. It goes just to the south of Mount Rainier and then down to Yakima, Washington, where it turns and goes back north. And then from there, I've had to plan my own route to get me out to about here, which I believe is Dayton, Washington. And from there, I'll pick up the Lewis and Clark Trail, which starts in Astoria, Oregon, if you're going to the east, and then it runs across the United States in a more northerly route. From there, I'll take that over to Lewiston, Idaho, and then down here around Kamaya, Idaho. I will join the Transamerica Trail, take it up to Missoula, Montana, where I plan on visiting the Adventure Cycling Association headquarters, which are located there. So that'll be a little bit of a detour up there for me, about, I think it's like 10 miles off the main route to go back up there. And then from there, it'll be a southeasterly route down through a couple of mountain passes here at the end of the Bitterroot Valley and on down into Yellowstone National Park. This little black line here is a side route that goes down across the eastern face of the Teton Mountains. So I'm going to take that down and I can make a little loop back up to rejoin the Transamerica Trail and then on down to into Colorado here. When I get to Colorado, I've kind of changed the route here a little bit. I've dropped off of the Transamerica Trail for a bit, and I'm staying a little bit further over to the east towards Denver. Um, the reason I'm doing that is because this is one of two mystery detours that I'm going to be taking, and I'm not telling anybody what these detours are to or the reason for them yet because this one here in particular, well, both of them actually, it's going to depend on how I'm feeling about riding at the time that I get to the area where I have to make a decision about where I want to, if I want to make these detours or not. So they're going to remain a mystery until I've decided if I'm going to do them or not. But at any rate, I'll be coming on down and either coming out at Colorado Springs here. If I stay on the TA, I'll probably pop out at Pueblo and then finish out Colorado here on the Transamerica Trail. I would rejoin it down here if I left through Colorado Springs or exited the mountains from Colorado Springs across Kansas, and then I'm going to jump off the TA again and kind of head up to the north here a little bit, just south of Topeka, Kansas, um, and Kansas City. And then the reason I'm going up here is I want to ride the Katy Trail, which is an off-road gravel trail, mostly gravel trail, some pavement, for about 200 miles over to St. Louis. And then from St. Louis across the Mississippi, um, down into the Ohio Valley there, and just to the east of Paducah, I will head south through the land between the lakes on the Underground Railroad, which is another ACA mapped out trail. I'll run that down through Kentucky and Tennessee and pretty much straddle the Mississippi-Alabama border there, um, and then on down to the Gulf Coast here, and finally across the Gulf Coast into the Big Bend area of Florida here, and then across the peninsula and finishing up in New Smyrna Beach. And so this route comes out to be 4,220 miles. And I'm planning on taking about 90 days to get across. So I'm thinking I'm going to start a week after Memorial Day and I'll probably finish up right around Labor Day. Um, and that's the route. That's how I decided how to do it. My reasoning behind uh, you know the routing that I'm taking, and there you have it.